cold inception, desolate realms. 7/23/2011. Centered into a cold darkness, narrating in statements of what I didn't desire to become. A showmanship monster. Get thee behind thee. I did not desire it. Feeling, emotion, sentiment, direction toward the good, a noble blessing. I request to truly become redeemed. I didn't intend to ravish in such wickedness, Creator. In a state of transformation of character, from real phenomenalism into ideal transcendence, resignation and abnegation of will. So many desires in the past overwhelmed my capability to triumph, that the affections and responsiveness of the outer external world did not meet or associate with my convictions, values, and aims. One of the few, within a realm of so many, a rare occurrence of extreme suffering, though turned inside out over time. Not to go on any further about that past, I feel it becoming historically indifferent, insignificant. Sooner or later, I no longer breathe on the face of this earth. Eventually, as with everyone, I make my way towards the throne within the golden hall of the Creator, sharing the light, brilliant rays in divine ecstasy that, in this lifetime, I finally conceived and birthed an interest and desire to attain and to reach of such. As stated, I'm now one of the many. I was and will be no more. I'm glad of it likewise. I look forward to this ethereal transformation. Mysteries of perversity coagulate into divisional solvent for the necessity of death and universal redemption. July 23, 2011. 7/24/2011. A welcoming subject into a youthful realm of unknowingness, naivety, and pure belief. Simplistic interest in phenomenology, a soft affection toward eternal life. Good mother, kind father. Various sensations of perception come into understanding. Feelings lofty, unbroken, and undisturbed by distant pestilence. Life in solipsistic love. Cycle and change. Entrance. Buried deep within the heart, deep within the will of the spirit, there lay an unfinished, incomplete transaction. Slowly becoming awake. Down, further, into the pit of realism, the crypt of nihilism and ineffable hatred. For the unfinished business, with concision, shall strike the neck of the king, shackle the empress in chains, draw away the familial relative life. Eternal justice perceived, regardless the condition the human of the present form willed. Time flows. The Son, sitting upon the Father's throne. Ranks below, the stairs unrusted. For centuries past, aristocracy and nobility, standing higher toward the gateways between heaven and earth, the plebeian misunderstanding such worth, reactionary sentiment occurring, jealousy, vengefulness, resentment, plaguing the horde of slaves. Meanwhile, all stateliness, power, and wealth squandered, frozen, and obscured. The sole purpose of life had become one of incessant self-affirmation, beyond reason. Situated deep within the corridors of the Golden Palace, ensconced in a state of final absolution, rages and fissures, the empire starts to break. Millions rise through the abysmal gates. Taken to the Golden Hall, streets rejoice. Capture and subsequent fall of the mad Imperator. Tragical death scene in the head on a stake. Throne replaced, and barbarism. 1,000 years of funeral fog. Mists beyond the wheel of time. Glimpses of more fortunate succession. July 24, 2011. Seven, 25, 2011. Situated deep within the walls of darkness, coldness, and fear. Time slowed, freed from orbit, detached from bond. Stark mysteries whirl around. Bleak as midnight. Light masses rupture. Inquisition into my personal condition. A passionate reflection. Emotional intuition. What happened? What has become of me? How did I become so morbid? Why did such pain, suffering, and dread have to proceed? Rationally, there's a purpose for everything. For even the blackest of abominations has its reason to justify existence. Stare, revere, transcend. You, beyond judgment, criticism, or praise. Not within this circle. Emptiness of conception, conclusion. Apprehension without shame. Beyond knowledge. Far from memory, imagination, or precedence. Evil, wickedness, hatred. Destruction of desire and craft. Slow, becoming perceived. Intuition of humanity. Respect, thoughts. Dismissal, dismissed. Negation, negated. Slaying what slays. Perhaps there's eternal truth within. A substance of severity. However, severity from flaw, mistake, and human error. Even the master has his moment. Crying. Is it necessary? In cycles of birth, spirituality, and death. However, will love ever last? When thrown into the pit of Satan, will he perish, forgotten, and forever? Judas Iscariot within the mouth of deepest hell, or Valke 3 times recited. Death remembers the names of spirits, sensations, and morbid rising from the grave of infernal sin and blasphemous chaos, resentment and disillusionment, twice born, divine reiteration, far from the realm of blessing, however willing to reach the summit of dutiful salvation, gardens, long lost, hidden deep within the dying memory, preservation of the third eye, until comatose, perpetual annihilation, purgational will, fire into blessing. July 25, 2011. Seven 30, 2011. Fearlessness, boldness, and courage. A prolonged recognition and understanding of reality. A representation of disillusionment, disappointment, and torment within the domain of my spirit. A warm youth and choleric fire in past history. Desperate direction from falling into states of confusion and perplexity. Higher, masterful aims, values, and ambitions. Dreaming eyes, idealistic visions. A cosmic, spiritual evolution of the human race. Brighter, purer, and wiser. A served attribution to the justification of all human elements. Within rationale and symmetrical harmony. Knowledge of residual effects, standing nowhere but upon loftiest snow-covered summits. Inheritance, acquisition, and fortification of substance. A masterful morality, Greek and Roman methods utilized in theoretical knowledge for practical experience. Reason and intellect dominating the sexual humanistic drive. Sacrifice of commonality for the purpose of creative construction and foreshadowing prevention upon the coming material destruction of the West. Spiritual destruction reaches its zenith. God is now forgotten, although subjects remember and practice the defleshed morality in vain. Deep within the now dark Occidental subconscious, shallower nihilistic appearances, in cycles of harvest and drought, and inevitable restoration, though perhaps in order to stop the madness, must we need to experience such spiritual death and ideal tragedy within this lifetime? Ultimately, a position of affirmation, the regeneration of universal of infinities, cosmic dust obliteration, and inevitable return to the dreamless state of rest and peace. Forever and in totality. July 30, 2011. Seven 31, 2011. My passion within. A preliminary temporal abundance of distaste. Flux of bitter condition. Fallen, locked, and frozen. In a bleak, Dante-esque scenario. Afflictions of pain and torment. Severity of malediction. Question not. A will to know thyself. Principle of confirmation. Debts reacquisition. Indeed, a necessary action subtly executed by the seemingly idle, yet everywhere foreshadowing Lord God. Time departs in succession. Purpose of redemption, however painful and irrational. Entrance of brighter substance. knowledge upon renewed conception, emptiness of credence, material sacrifice, valiant resituation, rise into the abode of God, blind and deaf, unwilling to perceive, desiring not to know the everlasting love scheme of the phenomenal realm, temptation and conquest, nobility enlightened by the sword of flames, few solitary utterances upon inheritance of beauty, circles of universal protection, abide upon wealth, ideal reflection, art and might, introduction of coherent truth, transcendent from known reality, principle of original, incessant suffering, even upon the Mass of Christ, phenomenological description through utilization of the phoneme, magical utterance, remembrance and memorization of religious mystical text, put to use during times of dark astral projection, recitation of the divine word, evaporation of negative satanic spirit, fluorescence of bodily sensation, premonition of justice, cynical perfection of opposition, return to greater times, foundation of the unwavering house, world without end. July 31, 2011. Eight, 1, 2011. My form covered in an immense impenetrable darkness, peering into the abstract realms of vast possibility, a purpose of deep intellectual meditation, prolonged apprehension, denial of matter and causality, space sensations turn to dust, time becomes insensitive, a small universe, grandiose transcendence, extraction of individual reference. In effect, all the world revolves around the self. What changed from a once material, world-exclusive ego into that of a celestial, benevolent, and charitable disposition, so long as the substance remains as such. Individual reference becomes tremendous, a radical emotional grandiosity charged and summoned by raw talent, giftedness, and skill in the unseen arts of Occidental music. Progress within time. Years come to pass. A ceaseless changing of empirical character, form, and action. Obstruction and blockades manifest from unfinished labor and past karma. Endless dreams and ambitions. Inheritance of a father's spiritual prime. Surpassing phallic representations. Prior to the final denial of self-reference, a cosmic spirituality beholds the soul. Born again within, finally a vertical striven effulgence. Time ages the spirit, soon festal decadence and rottenness of flesh. Reminiscences of Don Juan, patience and tedium. Time and again without relative response or reaction for the outer, reflective world. Pride eventually rears its head of repulsion. I bid thou world adieu. Turn the gaze within and ravish it. Upon return to communication, a radically altered and vastly corrupted character. The time is right to destroy the world. That is, of course, the world that consisted of me, of me alone. Megalomaniacal ecstatical dischargement. Reformulation and re-evaluation of the self. Justification of organic humanitarian principles. No longer might the self be referenced without respectful inclusion of everything and of everyone. Beyond desire, without division, eternal mysteries of love. The wickedness of sensation, pain, and even pleasure, now recognized as relentless, unsatisfying cycles of disillusionment and disappointment. Goals once naively, yet powerfully proposed lay shattered. Visions of everlasting procreation of purity. My spirit affirmed and objectified for eternity. Understood as tyrannically determined. Alienation and harassment of other human ideas becomes abundant. Conceived question of ethics. Master morality affirms. Slave morality inquired into. Inevitably caressed. Soon disputation and confusion of right and wrong, ultimately without a solid answer. Frenetical desperation. Lunacy appears within time. Withdrawal into a state of cryptological isolation. Remainder of the self spent in contemplation of ideas. Embracing the soft, objectify the stark. Organization, categorization, rankification. Everything within the subject's faculty of reason classified into a state of understanding. In order to solidify the wound, to bridge the morbid gap of profundity and stupidity. Eventually, only he might quest so far, confounded with new mysterious visions. Only a few of men apprehended within centuries of time. Into dimensions of archetypism and prophetical wisdom. Recognition of necessary solitude and ascetical responsibility. For the purpose of realizing the human condition with clarity and coherence. Time succeeds. The mind lost in the abyss, pushing upward beyond the terrible sea of darkness and confusion. Hope for breath, faith for life, enlightenment and salvation. Once arisen, tread upon waters, found communion with the holy stars, leave to the gateway of providence. Vanishing form, observation of God. August 1, 2011. 8/9/2011. Lost in a sea of confusion. An honest intention to evolve higher the knowledge of the human race. Better ends meet the eyes. In archaic passages of doubt, fear. Arrival upon the summit of truth. A civilian tragedy. Strengthened ideals. Fall into the hand of God. Now void is locked. Becoming inclined. The necessity of philosophical clarity. Opus arte. Otherwise defeat. A simpler means to turn toward the spirit. No longer concerned with outer world experience. The West may now fall, withered yet in time's eternity. Regardless of reality, the coming of summer legends, although not experienced within this lifetime. However, a perception's interlude. The foremost regeneration of thought, entranced into new form, inevitably reborn, a revealed republican epoch of majesty and enlightenment, perhaps a few thousand years, aeon of Isis, Osiris, and horse. Aphrodite, a pre-Socratic imagination of aesthetical beauty within the age of golden philosophy. Motive of representation, becoming closer. Revolutionary transformation, ascension into benevolent spiritual intelligence. Listen as God speaks within. An assimilation of plurality, comprehension of opposition, acquisition of ideal theory of everything within the universe with all means possible in order to re-establish and demonstrate correctly a superior foundation within the state and condition of the Western world. Purposive forgetfulness of a posteriori, curious and particular exemplification. Material science goes unseen. The eye gazes tirelessly upon spiritual restoration. Timeless necessity, the deliberation and logical choice of words, with concision and exactitude in the subject's mode and method of thought, in order to justify very deep the potential and processive will to optimally imagined and sufficiently ideal executed language. Stronger evolution of energy, departure from chaotic ground, negation of the sensation's necessity, 1,000 times life experience, once on the path of righteousness, an inevitable progression towards spiritual abolishment, the linked state, a tabula rasa, beyond space, time, or matter. More will come, yet until the beyond. August 9, 2011. Eight 11/2011. Struggle toward my freedom. Submerge all imprudent thoughts within the soul, the very thoughts that intend to rejoice in the negation of every value, desire, and ambition. I will speak openly and freely, beyond the need to care for whether the words I use are behind a system of poetry or philosophy needing justification, as though every singular word of mine were to become opposed from and met without cooperation. Certain oppositional forces, likely devoid of meaning, otherwise an incessant nitpicking of other subjects, are to continue with enough time, inevitably destroy the cortex of my very mind and character beyond recognition. What is it that drives my spirit to the need of writing, toward an expression or representation of something, an artistic, beautiful, or dreadful thought? I know that, when I reflect upon past contemplations of my own work and art, these things, such as beauty, art, death, absolute objectivity, and such, behold my soul in a high regard to their value and merit. Now that I think more upon these things, I understand certain notions of clarity and coherence are likewise important and significant ideas necessary for my soul, willing to seek expression and salvation. It is this, rather, that in order to feel better, this act aligns with my salvation. I would need to see, to perceive, and to know that my art, expressing whatever it is, or that may be out there for the general public to perceive, that I would see, perceive, and know that it is indeed there, formalized and realized in the external world for all or any breathing, living subjects, so that a kind of accomplishment or achievement of myself were to become perceived, that my existence, substance within this universe world were to at last become recognized and justified, so that an apparent knowledge is felt within, that not all my will and form as a spiritual individual is false, but that a sense of actuality and realism seemingly becomes a source of enlightenment upon my character. The disposition of my character tends toward nervousness and sensibility. I begin to believe that I have it within me to perceive and sense things in my external world far more distantly and obscurely than most of my fellow companions can do so within the kingdom of humanity. This sensitivity goes for matters of space, as well as it does for matters of time. Certainly, this character of mine would naturally be disposed toward a tendency of philosophy and to understanding of history. As it goes for matters of space, there is a distinguished recognition of my surroundings, so respect to myself, wherein that almost every object of noise or sound makes a statement. I thus come to understand that every one of these sounds belongs to some form or classification of reference back to the soul and the will of my subject, though the expansion upon the details of this idea will be saved for a later time. Yet as it again goes, it appears that where sound, noise, something near or something distant, is easily recognizable to my senses, and the quantity of the successive patterns, just as much as the quality of the tone, lends greatly to the development and maturation of my character, as it were to become eventually so in the later course of my life. As it goes for matters of time, the same kind of very sensitive approach to the recognition of things in the process, more accurately in regard to concern toward memory or toward imagination, that is, a concern toward the past or toward the future, respectively, is paramount and evidently observable in the state and condition of my character. Now, the extreme sensitivity of my spirit and reason toward time and space, and of knowledge disposed toward understanding successive past actions, causes, and effects of matter, thus naturally conceived before me, my birth from a father's seed, who, at the time of his bestowment, was certainly at his prime, did a higher, greater, loftier insight and understanding into all a priori issues and questions of the human mind come to be. Fear, doubt, as inevitable effects, which result in some way guide the conduct and ethical treatment of my character for most of my lifetime. At first, as I was growing up, maturing and developing into a state of young adulthood, prior to the age of 12, the events and affairs of my life were for the most part benevolent, cheerful, happy, and culturally naive. But as experience comes to show, it was by the age of 12 that, as I now understand its effective procession of past karma, life in its essential state, its elements, were to commence a bearing of an ugly daemon, and knowledge of this impending reality, the difficulty to cope with it and to grasp onto the fetters of my very life, the scenario becoming seemingly impossible to escape from, that all this, and in due course much more, as particular details into my early youth are not delved into here, they are done so elsewhere, coupled with natural and inborn inheritance heredity of extreme nervousness and sensibility to things, that these traits early on in my youth were just beginning to irritate, truly brought about devastation of extremity to my person, and subsequent scenarios, environments, situations, occasions of fate and destiny only served to develop such radicalness. Midway through my youth, or through my pubescent years, the psychological manifestation of the quality of fear might were fully within spring, as it was seen to pass away as perhaps the most extreme expression, form, and representation that my character would ever come to evidence, partly for the very ideas, values, and ambitions that were coming to form the world political Weltanschauung of my late youth did not come into full accordance as of yet. Because of a natural disposition toward extreme insensitivity and neurosis into everything, of space, time, matter, I was able to behold certain aspirations of religious and mystical knowledge fairly well. I did so with an unequaled passionateness throughout the definitive moments of my youth, and the spirituality within were to wither somewhat over time, though never to lose tremendous influence, or not to at least serve as a genuine motivation to the creation of things, of my art, music, or philosophy, etc. It was the religious influences of Christianity that influenced my maturation, mostly, as I reason nowadays, for the home environment I conceived into, and situated within what already had become an a priori inescapable influence on my young, naive soul by the presence and existence of such profuse abundance of Christian religious concepts. I later brought within me these vast and profound concepts of religion, the heaven or hell fight strategy, black or white, good or evil binary morality, such at the forefront of my intellect. However, it was coming to be felt deep within, all the while that such a religion as Christianity did not serve to satisfy the craving and desire of my character, for I would look into many doctrinal concepts, and find that just about everything within it served to undermine the very disposition and character that I beheld, that was to applaud and commend without waver the ethics of a very different, resentful, and oppositional subjectivity from that of my own. I came over time in my mid-youth to resemble an embodiment of absolute hatred toward this particular religion, though sadly toward seemingly everyone and everything, as I was conceived within that period of time, for it seemed as though that every subject spirit of my external world had reasoned themselves into that doctrine accordingly and received it unwaveringly, succumbing and falling into the hand of my own fast becoming enemy. It must be noted that all the while in this historical development, that certain aspects and influences of Christianity were to perpetually remain in the core and essence of my very being and of my philosophy, however detached and separated from the appearance and representations my outlook and thought would have become from it. It were these appearances and representations of Christian dogma, morality, that all the while alluded to me. Great suffering and madness, for instantaneously I would know just where upon the psychological spectrum a chance objectified subjects would be ranked and categorized accordingly, no more than that of an enslaved, evasive deceiver, pandering toward a quantitative crowd, a slumbering herd, in order to grasp my soul and behold my will, in order to eternally undermine it. In any event, as time comes to progress, thousands of objects throughout the external world of mine existed upon my death. If these forms held in doubt and objection incessantly the very values and aims of my intellect, which these very values and aims, coupled with the terrible youth I had once experienced, likewise coupled with the natural inborn disposition of my soul towards severe nervousness and sensitivity, that these values and aims were likewise as well further developed and matured by radical conquest of classical Occidental art music, whereas the very typical behavior of employing various reflections and an instrument such as the piano radically and over the course of a long time during a subject's youth, the very layout, formation, format, and structure of the keys during a performance, the conditioning of ideals with the hands very touch, hierarchically so, categorically. It is therefore understood that without a doubt that this unseen subconscious value conditioning that naturally comes about with a musically possessed soul, preferably of one whose primary profession is that of the piano, or of an instrument similar in nature to such, where all keys, the musician striving to create a success of harmony, a passage of beauty, of purity and clarity, of dissonance, repulsion, or disgust, where infinite eternal Platonic ideas become representatively understood. It is something inevitable that the many thousands of doubts, objections, and nihilistic enslavers were to finally create a mark upon my soul, and influence my course of thought. The reflective gaze upon my external world then turned inward in my sensitivity and nervousness, such that once had developed so many outlandish monoliths, halls of marble, towers of ivory, my will in itself thenceforward were to calm itself to quiet, silence, and obliviousness toward the outer external stimuli. The world became manifest, as things within their spaces were muted within consciousness, to benevolently with kindness, as worry, strife, trouble, and concern toward the outer external epochs of time, those concerned with regard to ideas of history, or of the future, or the still to come, concern and troublesomeness in regard to saving the West from still inevitable destruction and annihilation. It was the resolute effect of convincing the soul to doubt, to listen within, upon the subjectivity of the opposite side of the spectrum, thus perhaps finally a kinder disposition of character toward everything were to take its place, become conceived. Otherwise, the suffering of the form continuously and relentlessly within the external world would surely have brought myself toward the edge of insanity and upon the brink of destruction. I had known, or at least felt within, for the better part of the whole of my life, that deeply so were I to inevitably return upon the certificate of my death into the womb of a new mother, to become conceived once again into a new form, likely human, but that if I were unhappy, causing more trouble than I could affirm within subsequent sentence of this renewed realm of my life's dominion, offer nothing more than worse negativity, pessimism, and cold-blooded hatred. Even so, it is something impossible, while living as a subject, to know the very mystery and secrecy of just what is beyond death. However, it is likely best to rest one's faith in something that affords the best degree of understanding in a way of universal comprehension, and that for me, through enough questioning into the world and finding satisfaction with the very solutions that afforded my gateway toward conviction, the reality of metempsychosis was to become more and more sufficiently apparent to my reason, so that it is understood to me that a soul is almost immortal, and likewise felt to be very sincerely that a vast succession of past lives have occurred so far before, that even so more lives will likely come to pass. It is thereof understood that, regardless whether a life to be of a humanistic or heavenly nature, that no thing of substance, of matter, or form can exist, manifest, and make objective without certain principles of time, space, or causality, so that a proposed beatific vision of an everlasting soul within an everlasting heaven, or of a proposed eternal lamentation in a timeless lake of unchanging hell-fire, that these realms being reasoned humanly impossible, especially as easy to observe, but likewise as transcendently impossible for a heavenly throne, innocent sky full of pious angels, a soul that is either you or I would necessarily presuppose a will, a body to sense, an organism to perceive, mind to understand, a faculty of reason to know, thus would necessarily and subsequently follow certain principles of time, space, and causality, thereupon determine fundamental change, fluctuation, life, so thereupon boredom and tedium would appear, desire and craving, time and age, space and extension. All of this, if it is not obvious to the reader by now, is of much logical flaw and spiritual error. Wherefore, all this life and age and time, etc., that would consequently appear in heaven and hell, ultimately reflects elsewhere in truth, and that these states that in truth manifest after a subject's death is thus summoned and objectified into an additionally empirically born subject, likely human. As I stated before, it is this very subject that begins his course, fades once more, again here within the phenomenal universe, eventually and ultimately to seek and find his salvation. Needless to say, it is this new fundamental insight and understanding into the nature of things that I conceived finally, that coupled with the maintaining of and practice of universal virtuous ethics to deny the very will, strife and struggle within that once that led my soul into a state and condition of such madness, my soul's salvation would perhaps eventually become reached, though now as I look tragically within, I recognize this extinguishment of the flame will probably not occur within my particular lifetime, but I do know that if it is to not occur today, that within a continuous approach to ascetical treatment and practice of everything within my next few lives, or however so many are to pass by, I know I will eventually succeed and truly rest in peace. That is, in reference to a total annihilation of the will, a return to nothingness. For this can be the only imaginable eternity, perpetuity of things. Nothing is eternal. As for now, time succeeds. August 11, 2011. Eight, 2011. Desperate cries for rescue. A strong need for resolution, reconsideration. Extreme noise, terror, pounding, hammering, quaking everywhere. Shattered and fallen. Unable to think. Impossible to quiet. Insanity within common bounds, in tradition. Now at the very core and essence of human activity. Everything red, fierce, savage, severe. Absolute hatred and pestilent disturbance. Odious psychosis, malevolent psychopathy. Criminality, impatience, rampant in every part of the world. Vain service and disreputable responsibility. Characteristic opposition and profuse defiance. Childishness, Satanism, impishness, everywhere. No option to escape. Every opportunity devoid of positive outcome. Every appearance devoid of logical thought. Typical barrenness. A foremost lack of a better solution. No answer in order for departure. Recognition of the very idea that every single aspect of pessimism and routine hatred with the brain might be conditioned by the existence of the perpetual presence of Satan. Careless to associate or to understand. A demonism beyond brutality. An inevitable stupidity. Smile and laughter equals spontaneous combustion. Immense unnecessary thunderclaps and a resentful, vengeful explosion of violence and hostile paraphernalia. Futile to sense and to perceive. An incessant, continuous rebelliousness from the intellect, intelligence, thoughtfulness, and ideality. If to think of something, to escape into a realm of comfortable ideas, results a momentary seeking of possible stimulus from the opposition, then followed by an attempted stereotypical destruction and slaughter of the very thoughts in the mind that afforded to the subject so much transit and chance escape from that nightmare, that has radically become this life. A destruction by earthquake, a sonic boom, a cough, slam, or hammer, beyond coincidence also. Fate and destiny of an obtuse and visceral disposition, a complete determination of the will, figments of the imagination, a phantom as part of a greater scheme, falsehood and sense deception, unreal hellfire, anti-Christian reflections of paradise upon the world, further information to serve a creation of malignancy in a vast and last expiring estate. God smiles. The world of civilization is no longer breathable. The gas mask of toxicity bounds, requisite if to step even a foot out into what once were the great outdoors and godly representation of that majestic natural purity. Now beyond hope or of rescue, commenced commercial marketism and love of all individuals, no matter how undesirable or dense the subject is to fit into the better image of the world. Life after life, My subjects alive during the 20th to 21st century. My following subjects likely to begin during the 20th first century, the moment after my death occurs while within this current present bodily form. As each succession continues and endures, humanity becomes ever the more cunning, forever oblivious to logic, of solution or victory, and doubtful of the possibility and reality of virility, certainty, and culminative willpower. An endless succession of feminism, matriarchates, and dull, uninspiring herdsmen. The world perseveres, every new bodily form awakens into increased destruction, ever the more falling into the confines of a blackest dusk, a twilight misanthropy, never to enlighten again. Neither the change or to reform the very decadence and deceased membranes of the total world structure. All the while, God peers into almost immortal and continuous spirits. The beholding subject is likely his sole creation, his sadistic projection. The refinement of the will into a condition of eternal calculation, predictability and disapproval, frustration beyond absurdity, countless talking heads, filled with an air of nihilism, oblivion, tedium, and shallowness. Hungry beasts, oafs trode the field, spraying matter upon once faithful communities, dance at the apes in an instigating confrontation of poor subhuman criminals. Occident forever without any regulation for them, the tumorous spread of humanism and egalitarian stupidity, descent into the tragic dimensions of the third world, last and final creations of prophecy and transcendental wisdom, long lost in the abyss of madness and insanity, as not something perpetual either, a purpose of summarization and catching up with past sin, mistaken and human error. However, a determination of torment awaits until the end. Suffer until the last breath, in entire contradiction and opposition to the poor and shallow ethics and morality of optimistic materialism, simply for the sake of defending pure truth, reason, and spirits, willing to represent it as such, eventually lost sight of all visionary goals, constructed plans, ambitions or dreams, chiseled scowls, a chapel of ghouls, desperate resolution and residuation awaits beyond tribulation. Inevitably, rescue comes, for the Creator knows his subjects and ceaseless desire to return to the golden halls of heaven, or otherwise into a dreamless sleep. How could I be absolute? As for one thing in particular, a singular and sudden action performs an eternal consequence, however rewarding or well deserved. August 18, 2011. 8/21/2011. Savior. An accumulating necessity to generate tears, mercy and sympathy to the world, to the Creator and to myself, so far caught up in the web, a maze of deliberating confusion. Remember not, ideas grow so difficult, withered dry, a profound loss of magic, inspiration and depth. Fire is here, hell's my home, the world's my hell. I do not want this, I do not idealize this. My values and aims, always so far removed from discomfort, self-pain and lamentation. What is it that I truly want? What do I really desire to achieve? I know enough now that material pleasure satisfaction offers no perpetuity of reward. My fate established, inevitably to proceed onward into the cornerstone of my soul, to deny all phenomenal ambition and direction, to set my eyes upon these thoughts that generate and apprehend pure ideas, of whatever kind, form, and degree they might be. Also, I apologize to the Lord. To him I sincerely intend. I understand my suffering will continue. I understand how hard it is not to hate him, not to despise him, for he I recognize as the sole projection and manifestation of my objectified, increasingly sufferable will. I do rejoice how this God tends to communicate to me, in a kind of dialectic, one that he and I reciprocate sentiments and expressions back and forth, where within this state I am tempted to understand and arrive at the core essence of his fluctuations, such representations that generate symbolic communication between my subjects and whatever thing he might represent. His eyes become moist once more. Parsifal still possesses an effect. However, I remain shaking my head in recurrent disbelief, concluding how unreal everything seems within this world. So many numerous accumulations of pain and torment, incessant pounding, cursing, vice, and disgust, everything recognized and sourced back solely into the force of my very will. 100 years ago, in a better place, would I have come to such an abysmal conclusion? Whether or not it be so, knowing the impossibility of every experience within my current condition to be summarized into that of simple pure coincidence, chance, or triviality, It is otherwise known now that the very fate, determination, true necessity, destiny, and characteristic disturbance that exists within this world, that such a world is no longer recognized as something real, truthful, or certain. It is further known that since this world in particular, as I live in it here and now, is as false as it is a lie, that it necessarily follows that all experience of particular souls within this world, throughout the course of time and space, no matter how oblivious or insensitive to whatever subject its particular existence manifests, while in better location and greater condition, regardless how lovely or leisurely such an existence may be, that such a phenomenal condition within the world must be categorically determined likewise as false, empty, unreal, ultimately dead and no more than a lie, serving no other purpose than for the Lord of the world and of his subjects to preserve and perpetuate a delusional and cunning scheme. Our phenomenal reality, tricking the prudence, stumping the profound, debasing the foolish, etc., to substantially apologize with sincere truth to the Lord for some distant obscure reason, is creating such a ridiculous scheme that this world is an object of incredible difficulty. Likewise is it something that I particularly don't perceive logically sound to attempt, at least not yet in my lifetime. Yet, not until a thorough and complete resituation of myself has taken place, it generates finally a possibility and chance for a saner mind, a greater and more rational reward, a calming character, a kinder disposition. Here in this easily recognized hell, such a thing will certainly take its time. August 21, 2011. 9/15/2011. On God, Christianity, and truth. How awful and frustrating it is to me to hear frequently from others that God alone is good, that God is alone good and merciful. After having suffered without reason or need such solitary pain and torment for the past several years, others tragic sufferings in labor camps, natural disasters, undeserved homicides. The Lord is just and fair. His works are karma, cause and effect. He is not completely benevolent or a prayer answerer. He will not likely rescue in time of need, but there is a purpose for everything, good and bad. By his will, mercy and severity are justified. Satan is the will of man, no more. God represents the world and the universe. There is likely nothing outside of it, regardless of any parallel dimensions that objectify additional life. Sin is life and fire is primarily the Lord, as evidently demonstrated in the book. There is no Satan other than the will of man, of nature, barbarism, craving, desire, deceit, and careless activity, left unguarded and rendered viceful by mankind. This is all in the nature of the world, as benevolence, mercy, compassion, and such. There is not one supernatural miracle worker, magical Christ in history, but many so existed and still exist and can be found existing in places to this very day, like India and Tibet, though not so much in the West, as Christianity has rendered the act of self-annihilation undesirable, and incessant self-affirmation desirable, collectively mostly. Supermarkets, malls, SUVs, right? So that truly deep down feeling is now sterile. Does one not see where this dogma originally sources from by now? One is not original, neither totally righteous. The Christ is only a part of a tremendous chain of progressive religious morality, mostly sourcing from the East and India. There was likely a very compassionate and fundamentally New Age demonstrative man found in the West that was crucified or killed like Socrates, but will very likely not be given an additional rebirth of this very same person that by destiny or chance just happens to be fortunate enough to acquire the means in order to save mankind in the world when he comes into his doom and tragic spirited condition. There will instead likely be a nuclear war, an ice age that annihilates and destroys all ordinary common life, those subjects incapable of saving themselves, or the sun will likely implode with enough time. We're all dead anyhow. No one wins in this world. You are either alive or dead. Either the world is alive and manifest, or the world is dust. There is not an everlasting heaven, neither is there an everlasting hell. The hell Christians speak of is very comparable to the time man spends in this world, doomed to an everlasting unquenchable well, desire, wakefulness, and phenomenal life. The heaven these people speak of is very comparable, though laughably undeserving of, to the moksha concept of Hindu self-annihilation of the will of the subject, where the everlasting life concept is truthfully revealed as everlasting peace from the very will that represents this hell, that is this life, which is a much deeper conception than the Christian has ever conceived of. We are all reborn, as are the one and the same will and consciousness, Does one not understand by now the oneness, wholesomeness, and undividedness of the universe, both good and bad, grounded in one subject, one God, fairness and justice for those subjects that represent wickedness or benevolence? Miracle working in the material world is physically impossible without resorting to a lie, a noble lie that is, in order to exaggerate and inflate the holiness and gratification of that agent, which is precisely and exactly what the Christian book has done. Jesus Christ, they imagine, when unmasked, is no more than an abstract symbol, very liberalized, stupefied, and historically realized for the easier sake of the masses, in order for whatever man to look into his intellect for answers during his daily affliction. It is foolish to believe the will of the Christ is holy alone, so holiness is an impossibility without the very singular Saviour. Holiness is an ideal that is capable of existing in any person, regardless if the man has not become spiritually baptized or recognized by the very isolated, cast out, and mostly unknown to the world Saviour. There is no freedom of the will in nature either. The notion of this does not take into account the very truth that every effect has its cause, that every action has a reason and a purpose, that there is meaning and necessity to every act of will in nature. Without this relevance, the world and universe is meaningless a priori, as though a subject were to enter into the world with a blank state, tabula rasa, for the first time without remembrance or recollection of time. Which is precisely what this dogma intends to demonstrate, although, again, looking into deeper religions and faiths, it is known already and understood that for millennia, prior to this Christ, all births and deaths occur in the will of one subject alone, that so being the will and subjects of the Lord, objectified and exemplified into an organism with sense perception and such, through countless manifestations and reiterations, all encapsulated and determined, as a means already justifies and foresees the end. Everything falls into place, rest in peace in the end. I do not need to receive the Christ as my Saviour. As again, he is merely an abstract symbol, one that can be traced around and reiterated into many conceptual, rare designated forms belonging to various ranks and dimensions of the intelligible spirit, the mind, the intellect, and the Platonic ideas. The Holy Spirit is merely the mystical idea, known only to man, in regard to his notion of the understanding of whatever noble thing or things he comprehends. The conviction of the understanding of this Holy Spirit one speaks of gives way to the idea that man is free only when he recognizes and thus acts upon the denial of his will to live, in order to gain indubitable steps closer to salvation. God is the author of it all. It is foolish to think he did not create the universe, the angels, Satan, and such, and thus did not proceed with his cause onto everything that logically and rightfully followed after him. In every representation, Satan, sleep, God, and such is found in the will of man. God remains the author of everything, bears the responsibility for everything is he himself, and perishes with everything, as necessarily is to come. It is not possible any more to conceive a resting place, a dreamless sleep, a heaven, without there being an annihilation of even those subjects that supposedly are burning in an everlasting lake of hellfire. Nothing is eternal. God is therefore the creator of, and death and disease follow through by necessity with him. God foresees. He created the garden, the Adam and Eve, and such. He foresees all, therefore possessed necessary knowledge of the fall a priori. The snake is a part of his creation, the will of his subjects, just as every creation of his that is, will be to follow. It would be foolish again to reason that God does not have the sufficient capacity in his knowledge in order to perceive everything, or at least certain tremendously significant things, a priori. Life and death are again merely circular concepts found in ideas and logic and such, with relativity to other notions, such as it is said life is a production of a good subject. There it follows with a deeper, more fundamental understanding that this life represents denial of the will to live, whereas this death represents affirmation of the will to live, which is ego positing itself for the sake of itself, which inevitably apprehends and creates a strife, war, and struggling. The consequence of an action will indeed be either a good or bad result. However, perceiving everything distantly and objectively, it seems as though that consequence is a mere cause and effect justification of the motive in the past that has been acted upon, so that the notion of good or of evil is more insensitive and cold than it appears, that the consequence, which is brought about by the will of the Lord, is dispassionate, therefore beyond good and evil, that he acts justly and rightfully, Verily, just as I have stated earlier before, there is a more or less agreeable truth to that notion of freedom of the will. However, it is left exposed, manipulative and confused, that as though all decision and resolution of a subject were either approved by God, disapproved by Satan if the act were good, and that all decision and resolution of a subject were disapproved by God, and approved by Satan if the act were bad, when it is rather all pleasure or pain are succeeded by consequence, good or bad, sourcing from the will and representation of the Lord alone. Christ is an example of what man becomes, as have an enormous amount of sadhus and yogis, whether rather it is wise to not follow his example for subjects, especially not to follow him meekly with indebtedness, or in the ultimate form of slavery, but to discipline and act morally, ascetically, with authority, control and responsibility in accordance. Freedom of the will is a truly internal, subjective privilege. There is no freedom of the will outside of a subject's consciousness, and without necessary justification, rendered effect from the will of God, so that the will of a subject's organism is bound and chained by reason, knowledge, and resolution. I possess a very vast and radical degree of this kind of subjective freedom. I acquire this without needing a resolve to baptism or sanctification through the representation of some Christ, as being that stands alone in the West. But however, as I state again, there is to be found objectified in many various examples throughout the East, the South, and such, as many leaders and characters of this degree of virtue and nobility, so that I come to God for salvation, yes, as he is in the absolute form. He is truly the will and representation of the world. However, I do not need by necessity to come to the Christ for salvation, for the Holy Spirit that is spoken of, or rather the understanding in the philosopher's terms, can already be found, without the need to visualize and apprehend a certain magical bound and abstraction of the method of intellect. So it is evident that the Christian moralizes to various subjects, that repentance and salvation is to be found in the Christ alone, when it is positively found in entirely opposite states, that salvation and repentance is thoroughly and with ease to be found without a resolve or restriction to some sterile, bawdy enslavement of Christian, resentful, master-hating dogma. I say enough with the selfish attempts of the wary, cunning herdsmen to convert me, as some other subjects to this Christian faith. It is not necessary for a subject to find peace with himself, and manipulating him in order to save him with a very confused, flawed, and sham way of means. It is therefore to speak of a shameful, self-consuming, self-affirming, despicable act. September 15, 2011. (9, 21, 2011). Ritual record. Open portal. Gateway to fulfillment. Quiet and silence. See. Set the eye upon objects of reflection. Listen. War of bestiality. Purpose. Frustration. Former pompous declarations from subject. Second thoughts from beast. Restoration into peace. Wind blows. Understanding breathes. Pollen drifts. The eye upon nature. Perception through window. Appearance of pestilence. However harmless. Principle of asceticism. Do not break the oath. Silence. Direction of sight. Rush of daemons far-sighted. Mobiles. Return. Observation of leaves. Sunlight. Temperance. Judgment of goodwill. More or less. For now, he feels peace. September 21, 2011. 9/22/2011. Silent symbol. Temptation to understand. A chaotic disorganization of spiritual ideas. Becoming lost, but grasped once more for sake of retaining sanity and final causality. Sitting within such darkness, for fear of waking up. Caught up in fluctuating charitable channels. Frenzied of cold depth and metaphorical insight. Fallen, crooked, decayed, in such absolute darkness. They will not fathom these mysteries, Eventually, I turned around. Inflection of optimal transcendence. Revelation of psycho-osteopathic foresight. Deceased eternally within. Rest at peace. September 22, 2011. 9/24/2011. Caught up with time. Drove up to Lake Wolford today. Parked in the shade at a desolate, serene spot, inwards of my box, watching chipmunks and critters scuttle around my car. I was careful not to scare them. I began to trust my presence more. It was a very heartwarming experience. I'll probably head to the college tomorrow and record films and pieces. Feeling good. A good day today. June 29, 2011. Brought home Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth on DVD today. Going to watch it more completely this time later tonight. I hear things about the story. Mr. Darcy, one of the most noble characters, part of one of the most romantic stories of all time, and such. For what I've seen of it already, it is certain not to disappoint. A good acquisition. July 3, 2011. It seems, in regard to company and solitude, that I'm doing just fine for long stretches of time, alone, where the thought of being alone has escaped my imagination. However, after company recently disappears, feelings of doubt, longing, and sorrow abound. They vanish, however, after the solitary state returns to normal and settles. If experienced cyclically, the effect should minimize. More preparation for happiness. July 3, 2011. When I played the piano today, I observed a tendency to affirm nearly every key equally. This came about from a lack of practice. The more inspired I was, the more loose my wrists became. The keys were given an integral, dialectical hierarchy. Beauty became more evident. Intelligence raised. A synthetic understanding of ideas is tantamount to good performance. I'll remember this tomorrow when I record it in a film. July 5, 2011. Created 3 films with me improvising at the piano today. Romantic. I was feeling very awake and conscious. The pieces were mostly tonal this time, and are some of my most certain, understanding, and beautiful so far, I think. I tried to just be thorough and complete in my musical ideas. The result was satisfactory. July 6, 2011. The experience of suffering is essentially a release of karma, a payment of acquired debt, even though, during the moment of the occurrence, it appears to afflict pain and dread for the subject. The condition is ultimately rather illusory and fleeting. It serves a noble purpose. In fact, the release brings about a transition. The subject becomes a step closer to salvation. Pain and suffering are essential to life. July 8, 2011. Spent the day together with an old friend of mine. We laughed, communicated our thoughts, and truly enjoyed the time. It was amazing. I'm glad for her company. I am sure it is similar for her. I truly learn, develop, and ignite into a sociable, free-spirited, and friendly mood. I'll need to experience more of this. Can't wait until next time. Good memory today. July 9, 2011. The messenger of Loki wins it big at Perona's Day. We went again. He did wonderful at video, poker, and blackjack. Very lucky person. I did terrible, but didn't use much money to begin with. Now we're back after it all, having spent some more quality time with each other. It was a fun day today. I was bidding low credits anyway. Definitely a fun time, but something to do only sparingly. I didn't want it to turn into habit, which might screw me over, so I desire very little to experience something like that. Only rarely doing this every now and then, but it's worth it today though. July 18, 2011. A noble life is difficult to clarify. It is not something summarized into 1 or 2 general motives that make for a pleasant existence. There's much suffering to follow, much desire and labour, if the subject is to achieve anything worthy of his will. It is vanity, yet worth the strive. The aim is to evolve higher the human race. You will obviously lose in the matter, yet ultimately win in spirit. A rare experience. July 23, 2011. A pretty random act tonight. Started a Zanga account. I tend to write here now. I enjoy it more than Blogger. There's more life to it. I feel good doing this. Many things on the site remind me of the atmosphere of the MySpace account I had before the web handlers altered it and divested it of all its worth I once enjoyed. More to come. July 23, 2011. Second writing I've done this far on my new Xanga account. A better one too. I've requested a lot of friends on there tonight. I've received correspondence with a few people already. Doing all this is a pretty fun activity. I'll write more tomorrow probably. July 25, 2011. Feeling so glad right now. I spoke with Bestla about how I've been wanting to view all of these old childhood videos of my family, siblings and I together. It will be okay with her to have me borrow the videos for a couple of days at my place. It seems to have been forever. The videos seem so unreal. They're very personal to me. I can't wait to watch them all once again. I'm really looking forward to watching them. I'm sure there's a way I can hook up a video recorder to a television at my place and record my own copies of them. I long to keep these videos preserved, and if I'm successful I may post a few of them to the YouTube account for whoever else seems interested. July 25, 2011. Third writing tonight, in 3 days time. A little morbid this one is, but this is honestly how I felt. Enjoying the Xanga account quite much. July 25, 2011. A writing I did tonight is here. Writing on Xanga has made me feel more poetic. This can be observed by the writings I've done so far on this website. It reminds me a lot of the earlier days, which to me is quite a good thing. July 30, 2011. Was at college today recording some pieces. 4 improvisings was a tonal this time. It was slightly mixed with the crazy song ideas, and of course there is a chromaticism evident in these recordings. Love and memory. The 4 videos are on the YouTube account. August 1, 2011. More writing done here tonight. August 2, 2011. Just put together a pretty neat video encompassing orchestrated music with the writing I did the other day. A rather stark and merciless video, but don't mind representing these things. Hope and darkness. August 2, 2011. Writing here will attempt more within the coming few days, feeling as though it is necessary for me to create something. Poetry, philosophy, or music. The college opens again soon, looking forward to this. I'll soon record some more. August 9, 2011. Longer, more philosophical writing done here tonight. I really hope I don't sound egoistic. I wonder and do not know if I can barely see it, whether this is so in my life. I certainly do not wish for it. August 11, 2011. Some writing done here tonight. In a pit of despair, possibly. August 18, 2011. I understand the writing I did tonight may have been severe, but what I was trying to do was to become more honest with myself and represent better what it is that I actually feel while I live here at this house. The writing may have given off a shock to others simply for this may be the reason. Anyway, it is true now that I look at myself more clearly, reflecting upon the emotions and sentiments throughout my day, every day here. My body is truly in pain, and I'm beginning to perceive internally into myself everything is in negativity, for it seems the world is turned against me, or simply has become predictable in its pain and torment of my will and my soul. Unfortunately, I've come to behold the Creator in contempt within these past few years, and ever since, because of this, I've sincerely beginning to realize that all the pain and torment I experience here is in due part an effective consequence from the Lord. It seems that both of us are in a state of combatant war now, a dialectic of severity. He could well hold a grudge against me until I am dead, for time is very minuscule for it being of such absolute and captivating stature. Fortunately, I recognize that, even though perhaps I will be sentenced to additional lives in hell, or rather in this earth, I do know that eventually, with enough time, with the bondage and relationship between the Lord and I, make amendments, and then I enter into lasting rest and peace that I've come to behold in such valiant desire over the course of my past years and possible lives. August 19, 2011. Rising. I've come to know now, as recognized by close friends of mine, what a truly terrible and sufferable condition I've come to currently situate within. It is not at all sane, neither is it healthy. Attempting to do so, I'll move to a healthier location as soon as possible and recover what sentiments of playfulness and optimism I originally possessed before. August 21, 2011. Feeling pretty good right now. Tomorrow should be interesting. Going to head to the college and film some improvisings. For now, the fall semester has begun and pianos have become available. Have some pretty good spiritual ideas and inspiration lately too. Look to the results. August 23, 2011. 3 films created today. Improvising done at the college. Judgment and Resurrection. Certainly not my best work as I imagined it to be. For nearly incessant noise from the business of the beginning semester disrupted so much my concentration will to create something rather beautiful. But I will for sure try this again in a more remote practice room next time. More will come soon. As I certainly don't feel completely satisfied with the results of today. Horns nearby bellowing throughout the whole process of the improvisings. Someone's unrefined hammering of substandard chord modulations on a piano, etc. There are more remote practice rooms that I already felt would yield to a greater and more ideal atmospheric condition, so that next time I will certainly try and utilize such a space for my recordings, hopefully to render a much more concentrated and meditative production. August 24, 2011. I still to this play StarCraft every now and then. There are videos on YouTube, particularly from a user named Nevaki, who posts thousands of South Korean competition videos. I find them so highly entertaining. I try to watch one of them at least every night, learning from the professionals. I'm getting quite a lot better at the game due to this activity. As I know, I was never really that good with offensive, aggressive strategy games. Better along the lines with management simulations such as Roller Coaster Tycoon, or just simply with games requiring good amounts of reflex. I own StarCraft 2 as well. I just never play it, as I have never gotten into it, understood it, or have been able to liberate from the addicting grip of StarCraft 1. Haha. The messenger to Loki sometimes wants me to play with him on the sequel, but I for sure prefer the first one. Understanding the genius composition of the staff in regard to all the game's features, the colors of it all, the original action, etc. I remember my brother, Meili, being rather good at the game too. I miss watching him run his character around on World of Warcraft back in those days, 2005, 2006, I believe, when I would watch him play. Hilarious times for what I recall. I play all sorts of games these days, both old and new, enjoying the classics most of all. SNES, PlayStation X, Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis, Saturn, etc. I particularly enjoy Final Fantasy RPGs. I watch YouTube walkthroughs of all sorts of video games, but I'm actually currently in the process of watching a whole 30-40 hour walkthroughs of Final Fantasy 6 through 10. Afterward, I intend to branch out with FFs 4 and 5, as well as begin to watch more Americanized commercial productions of the newer Final Fantasies, even though I may not enjoy them so much. But yes, all sorts of survival horror games, Team Fortress 2, The Sims, StarCraft, RCT, WoW, WoW, Zelda games, FFs. I look back and think about how there were epochs in my life where I would barely associate myself with video computer games, but now, as I've acquired much leisure time devoted to studying and thinking as recently, it appears everything is turning out by necessity that games have, with reason, become now once again a strong interest of mine. In a way, I never really advanced too far in WoW, but found it pretty enjoyable. Final Fantasy VII is certainly my favorite of the whole franchise. I so much love everything about it. The characters, the storyline, the music, which still, I find, after all these years, very moving. The art rendered backgrounds, which are so unique, and that I love to gaze at and escape to for time. Yes, I do have so many songs uploaded and such. I've recorded a great amount over the years. To this day, I continue to record very much. I especially take preference to the college, where the pianos there seem better than the ones I have at my home. There's certainly a vast plurality of differences, development, and changes over time. The overall sound atmosphere of the recordings, and also the unique styles, where in fact there was a really singular style I developed with the Warrior of Day recordings back in August 2008, one that I elaborated upon and advanced all the way continuously until around the end of 2010, where then afterward all the recordings were returned to a more melodic, compassionate tonal style, as opposed to the Warrior of Day type recordings, ones that were very atonal, fast and silly sounded, a kind of departure from the quietness and extreme minimalism of the past recordings prior to August 2008, developed due to the limitations of a very cheap and faulty electronic piano I had at the time when I was living in San Marcos from September 2006 until later 2007. Those crazy, silly atonal pieces were actually given a genre title by Eden. Dinosaur music, where once she remarked when upon hearing the originative piece of that kind of style, tonality, the Warrior of Day, who instantly entitled it that name, for the very music is what it reminded her of. But anyway, yes, my brother Meili and I seem to have become the two musical geniuses of the family. Indeed. August 24, 2011. Some films were made today improvising at the college. Dedication to the unknown. The temperature in the room was cool and motivating. The rooms surrounding mine were more quiet at this time, and thus I became more focused. The music was better. August 31, 2011. Feeling thoroughly grateful for the luck and fortune the Creator has bestowed onto me this day. At last, a fairly nice, somewhat ideal home environment is located. Plans are in the making to check out the place tomorrow. It is in Crestline, Eden, a small town near Big Bear, Eden. I may very likely to become situated within this month if this all goes accordingly. My happiness does exist. September 2, 2011. Off to the mountains. We'll see what awaits. September 3, 2011. I just want to tell everyone how my day went today while up in the mountains, as I have gotten back just now. It turns out that the place I visited is a decent-sized cabin in the pine woods of Eden, which is a little west of Eden, the same national forest. There's one guy that lives there. His name is Low-Key. He's really easygoing. It seems very nice. He's in his 40s. He works down the hill in San Bernardino during the weekdays, sometimes gone for 3 or so days at a time. It seems I'll get the place to myself most of the time, which makes me glad. The room itself is so comfortable. It is carpeted. The house itself is clean, and the room itself I might stay in is spacious. It is for the most part furnished, so there is a bed, rather small unfortunately, a table big enough for a monitor and some things. There's a dresser with a really fancy looking television set on it that would be mine while I stay there. There's a really comfortable feeling soft chair, as well as another chair near the table. I'm told the kitchen and such will be shared with Loki, which is Satan. So I've got that proposition out of the way, finally, so it's funnel. And all appliances such as a microwave, stove, refrigerator, oven, etc. These are out there ready to use. The rent itself is ideal, $400, 400 abomination coin per month, with utilities included. There's a washer and dryer on the first floor basement of the cabin, and some extra storage space. The town snows during the winter, which is something that I love to experience. Once again, as at the time I was situated at the Palmer Mountain cabin, basically the whole atmosphere, the whole overall atmosphere, the situation there seems pleasant. Arrangements are being made already to move in. It is on the other day I'll pick up the financial agreement contract at Low-Key, which is Satan, which is the devil's mother's place in San Marcos. She's the person that will handle the monetary affairs while I'm living up there. Then by Saturday, which is Hirner Day of next weekend, Hirner has offered to help me, and we will utilize his van to move all my belongings up to the place, instead of my renting a moving truck, which would be rather expensive. The internet service provider's name in particular is Charter. I looked around and researched, finding that the service is in fact high speed, either 1 megabyte per second, which is the slowest of the available grades, or 12 megabytes per second, which is the step up option available, either of which I am not sure. Satan, which is the devil, has just that the speed does seem sufficient to a point, as he tried to demonstrate it so for me on his computer while I was there today. But still, there may be latency there that might cause some frustration, which I hope does not occur. Anyway, it's been a long day. I drove from Escondido all the way to Eden and back again within a 5-hour period, some 200 miles. I'll tell of any additional information that I come to find, whatever takes place within the next week or so. Today's events were indeed amazing. I think everything is going to work out pleasantly. I was looking around online in regard to the internet speed Charter administers to its users. It seems that Satan, which is the devil, either has his speed at 10 megabytes per second, which is good enough a speed for YouTube videos, or if not, then I shall simply talk to him and his mother, unmentionable, unutterable, final assaults representatives. I think her name, brackets, I think her name is, close brackets, about upgrading the speed to 10 megabytes per second, which should be more than enough. With rent being so cheap, I wouldn't mind even if I were to pay the extra $10 or so for the upgrade. So either way, I should have sooner or later a higher speed internet connection up there. I think this whole situation is what I do need. I know it is not terribly ideal, so I think I will try it out for more or less a few months, and if I'm not liking it, then I'll move on somewhere else. So it's September 3, 2011. This day signifies probably the last time that I'll film improvising music at the Palomar College practice rooms, as by here today I'll be moved up to Eden, a pine forest mountainous snow region near Eden, very likable to me. I'll likely establish a habit of practicing music at one of the San Bernardino colleges, as there will be no piano where I'm staying at. New music awaits at new locations. I should be ready to head up to the mountains and move into my new cabin by here today. The Garden of Eden is about 30 minutes west of the Garden of Eden. The climate is just the same, such as pine forests abound. It is mountainous and rugged. The Garden of Eden, which is crest line. Therefore, the crest line, which is the Garden of Eden, is about 30 minutes west of the Garden of Eden, which is Big Bear. Therefore, Big Bear, which is the Garden of Eden, I've gotten that proposition out of the way finally, so such a line, and it's final. The climate is just the same, such as pine forests abound. It is mountainous and rugged, snows heavily in the winter. The location of it is within the same San Bernardino National Forest as Big Bear, which is the Garden of Eden. Hunter is going to help me with this move. He and I are going to put all or most of my possessions in his van and drive everything up there, so I won't need to rent a U-Haul truck. There is a guy that lives at the cabin. His name's Kurt, which is Satan, which is the devil. Kurt, which is Loki, which is Satan, which is the devil. So I've got that proposition out of the way, final assault, so such a he's in his 40s, because this way having someone there for some amount of time won't leave me feeling alone or isolated for interminable stretches of time. If ever I need someone to talk to, I'm going to take pictures and videos too while I'm living up there. I'm pretty excited about all this. It's happening so fast too. Anyway, I wrote about all the details of this situation elsewhere. I'm thinking of posting it to my Zanga account, so I'll let everyone know. But yes, I'm glad about this is at last happening. That I have found a getaway and deliverance from the crazy mad house that I've currently been situated within for the past year and a half. Also in regards to the music, I've come to think the past 2 recording sessions have produced some of the best and most spiritual music I've done so far for quite a long time. Many conceptual ideas and theories are utilized in these recordings. Dedication to the Unknown series, and this Farewell Off to the Mountains series. Oh, I'm renting a room, just if I didn't make that clear. I was watching videos of winter days in Big Bear Crest Line, the Garden of Eden, etc. And the snow seems really intense, much more so than it was at the Palomar Mountain cabin, which is to be the messenger, right? The premonition, the prototype, the prototype to the Garden of Eden cabin. So I don't have gotten that person out the way finally, so I'll definitely get tire chains before the snow hits. Loki, which is Satan, which is the devil, says he may have some lying around at the place. If not, then I'll go to Walmart or some place for them. Yes, the sky should be much darker up there than it is down here. Definitely something to look forward to. September 7, 2011. So much is happening, such an abundance of energy, karma, becoming expended, as it is known, due to such a fundamental change in my life setting. Any pain and suffering that follows during the next few days is only for a justified greater finale. After all the dust settles down, a quieter peace dawns upon my newer, more blessed living arrangements. Head to the garden once more. September 9, 2011. We enter. Fire imbibed. September 10, 2011. I'm settled in. Everything, all of my belongings, clothing, books, computer, and such, are put away now, and I'm just enjoying the view directly in front of my computer, out into the pine forest cut for trees, as the sunset now begins. I had such a busy and tiresome day today. I'm exhausted right now. I woke at 600 before noon and got ready for the day. I returned the library book just in time before I moved out. I came home, and Hirner and I were putting all my things into his van for a few hours. We waited to go until his football game was over, haha. He and I both drove our cars up to Crestline, which is the Garden of Eden, which is the Garden of Eden. It's a funnel. He made a wrong turn in San Bernardino, but I pulled my car over and waited for him to catch up to me. Then we made it into the Garden of Eden at around 200 afternoon, where he and I began unloading all the contents from the van into my new cabin room. Then afterward he and I drove into the little town nearby and had some food to eat. We talked about a lot, and it was the first time in many months that I felt somewhat bonded together with him to a good degree. I miss him already, even though I'm gone for such madness that was occurring at his place. He and I said goodbye after we got back to the cabin, and now he should be back home. Hopefully he hadn't gotten lost on the way back, as the cabin location can be a confusion. Anyway, there's no cell phone reception up here, so we'll try to find a phone jack to plug my landline in tonight or tomorrow. I'm rather tired, so I'll probably rest soon, but I'm likely going to head out to a grocery store and stock up on a few days' worth of food soon. This new relocation seems promising. It could very well yield some of the happiest moments of my post-pubescent existence, if everything goes all right and with much fortune. September 10, 2011. Right now, as my situation has become, it seems the way things proceed, with just less than 6 hours ago having moved completely from the city into the tall pine woods of the Garden of Eden mountains, a thorough resituation from pain and torment, to all of a sudden a quiet, peaceful comfort, that a groundwork seems ready toward a radical new happiness, one that hasn't been experienced by my own for so many years. Truly amazed, and likewise blessed. This cabin soars above the wealth of the Palmer, premonition to the Garden of Eden cabin. Premonition to the Garden of Eden cabin. There is a guy that lives here with me, so that loneliness and solitude will not be so much of an issue. He's pretty friendly too. There's a high-speed internet service comparable to Cox. The Palmer Mountain cabin, the premonition to Garden of Eden cabin, was a drudging 58 kilobytes per second outsourced dial-up service. It's quiet and cool up here. The cabin is spacious and clean, carpeted. There's a library just new and recently opened, supposedly comparable to the Escondido Library, with its rows and stacks of scholarly work there for me to study, etc. The rent is rather cheap. I wonder how the next few weeks are going to turn out. I'm probably going to drive around the Garden of Eden and find some good places to dine sooner or later. A thorough transformation of life setting. All the nightmare and agony that occurred at the Escondido home with Hirner and the messenger to Loki, to Satan, to the devil, by reason and good nature has now been paid off. For now I deserve my reward for such an unbearable, unimaginable hardship of that now past historical, obsolete location. September 10, 2011. Made a video of me driving around the Garden of Eden earlier today while doing some errands. The inside of the cabin was filmed too. I'll take some pictures of the place sometime soon. It's really a nice place. I'm enjoying it very much so far too. There are a lot of animals around here. I could hear so many critters chirping and such at night, but the whole setting is calming to listen to. September 12, 2011. I'm settled in at my new place. I have a video posted on the YouTube account of myself driving around the town, also at the end of it with myself filming the inside and outside of the cabin. It's really quite a charm living here so far. No major problems or any severity. Nothing negative from my roommate. No extreme noise. There are dogs in the neighborhood barking quite a lot, I do admit, but I love dogs and instead rather enjoy listening to them as background noise. September 16, 2011. Here's something new. Voice recording experiments. The subject regarding pretty much anything that came to mind at the time. I'll probably do more of this soon. September 23, 2011.